Black Waitress answers a foreign call and saves the billionaire, CEO's biggest client. What if a single phone call, in a language you barely spoke, could change not just your life, but save someone else's empire? Zara Williams wiped down the marble countertop at Meridian, the kind of upscale restaurant where a single dinner cost more than most people's weekly groceries. At 35, she'd been serving tables for 12 years, moving between the city's finest establishments with quiet grace and a warm smile that made even the most difficult customers feel heard. She spoke just enough Spanish from her high school classes and late-night telenovelas to get by, never imagining those forgotten lessons would matter again. The evening rush was winding down when her manager stepped away, leaving her to handle the host stand. That's when the phone rang, and a panicked voice began speaking rapid Spanish about El Contrato and Perdido and Señor Mitchell. Most people would have hung up or found someone else. But Zara had learned long ago that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness echo in ways you never expect. Where are you watching from tonight? The voice on the other end belonged to Carlos Mendoza, though Zara didn't know that yet. All she heard was desperation bleeding through broken English, mixed with Spanish, as he tried to explain something about a lost contract and a meeting tomorrow. She glanced around the nearly empty restaurant, her manager still in the back office, and made a decision that would ripple through both their lives. "Slow down, please," she said gently, switching to her rusty Spanish. "Puedes hablar más despacio?" The relief in Carlos's voice was immediate. He was calling for James Mitchell, the tech billionaire who dined at Meridian every Tuesday evening. Carlos worked for Mitchell's biggest client in Mexico City, and somehow a crucial contract worth $40 million had gone missing from their servers just hours before a make-or-break presentation. Zara had served James Mitchell dozens of times. He was different from most wealthy customers. Polite, remembered her name, always looked exhausted, like he carried the weight of too many people's livelihoods on his shoulders. She knew he lived alone in a penthouse downtown, knew he ordered the same grilled salmon every week, knew he sometimes stared out the window like he was solving the world's problems between bites. "He's not here tonight," Zara explained in Spanish, her confidence growing as the words came back to her. "But I can take a message." Carlos's voice cracked as he explained. The contract was everything. Renewable energy projects that would power 3 Mexican cities. Without it, the presentation tomorrow would be a disaster. Hundreds of jobs were on the line. His own family depended on this deal. Zara found herself writing down details on the back of an order pad. Server crash, backup files corrupted, Mexico City office in chaos. Something about the man's desperation reminded her of her own father, who'd worked construction for 30 years before an injury left him scrambling for any work that would keep their family afloat. "Listen," she said, surprising herself with her certainty. "I have Mr. Mitchell's business card from when he paid last week. Let me try to reach him." Carlos's gratitude poured through the phone in rapid Spanish blessings she half understood but felt completely. After hanging up, Zara stared at the business card. She'd never called a customer outside of work, never gotten involved in anything beyond taking orders and serving meals. But something about Carlos's voice, about knowing that James Mitchell was the kind of man who'd want to know about this crisis, pushed her forward. Her hands trembled slightly as she dialed. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. When James answered, his voice was tired but alert. "James Mitchell speaking." "Mr. Mitchell, this is Zara from Meridian Restaurant. I know this is unusual, but I just took a call meant for you. It's urgent." She could hear the surprise in his silence. But when she explained about Carlos and the missing contract, something shifted in his voice. The exhaustion disappeared, replaced by sharp focus. "You speak Spanish?" he asked, and she could hear him moving, probably reaching for keys or a laptop. Enough to understand that this man is terrified and that $40 million and a lot of jobs are at stake, she replied. "I'll be there in 10 minutes, James said. "Don't go anywhere, Zara, and thank you for caring enough to call." James Mitchell burst through Meridian's doors like a man chasing time itself. Zara had never seen him move with such purpose. His usual calm demeanor replaced by barely controlled urgency. She was still at the host stand, Carlos's number written in her careful handwriting on the order pad she clutched like a lifeline. "Tell me everything," James said, not bothering with pleasantries. As Zara repeated Carlos's story, she watched James's face transform. The polite customer she'd served weekly became someone else entirely, a CEO who'd built his empire on solving impossible problems. "The Mexico City deal," he murmured, running a hand through his hair. "If Carlos's company loses this contract, 3 other deals collapse with it. We're talking about $150 million total." He looked at Zara with new respect. "How good is your Spanish, really?" "Good enough to know that man is about to lose everything he's worked for," she replied, surprised by her own boldness. James pulled out his phone and immediately called his IT team. While he barked orders about backup servers and emergency file recovery, Zara noticed how his voice carried the weight of someone who knew that other people's dreams lived or died by his decisions. She thought about her own dreams, the community college classes she'd been saving for, the small business she'd sketched out in a notebook she kept hidden in her apartment. "They can't recover the files remotely," James said, hanging up. "The whole system crashed during a power surge. Carlos's team in Mexico City doesn't have the technical expertise to rebuild everything by morning." He looked at Zara, and she saw something unexpected in his eyes. Vulnerability masked by determination. "I need someone who can communicate with Carlos, help coordinate while I get my best people on a plane tonight." "I can do that," Zara said, without hesitation. "But I need to understand. Why does this matter so much to you?" James was quiet for a moment, his usual walls dropping just slightly. "Carlos's company was the first to believe in our renewable energy platform when no one else would. 3 years ago, they took a chance on a crazy idea about solar-powered community grids. This contract isn't just business, it's proof that technology can actually change lives instead of just making rich people richer." Zara called Carlos back, explaining that help was coming. The relief in his voice was overwhelming as he switched between Spanish and English, thanking God and promising to light candles for her in church. James was already coordinating flights, calling in favors, mobilizing resources with the efficiency of someone who'd turned crisis management into an art form. But as they worked, a new problem emerged. Carlos mentioned something that made Zara's stomach drop. The original contract had been modified just before the crash. The client had specific requirements about local hiring and community investment that weren't in any backup files. Without those details, even a recovered contract would be worthless. If this moment has touched your heart, seeing how one person's kindness can ripple into something bigger, please give this video a thumbs up. "The modifications," Zara told James, watching his face pale. "Carlos says they're only in his supervisor's handwriting, and she's in the hospital after a car accident yesterday. There's no way to reach her until morning." James stared at the phone in Zara's hands, the full weight of the impossible settling between them. Then, "We have 8 hours to do the impossible," he said quietly. "Are you willing to help me save someone else's American dream?" The next few hours transformed Meridian from an upscale restaurant into an unlikely war room. James's laptop covered one table, while Zara coordinated with Carlos, who'd gathered every document he could find in the Mexico City office. The restaurant's Wi-Fi became a lifeline, connecting 3 cities as they raced against dawn. Zara discovered she understood far more Spanish than she'd realized. Years of listening to her grandmother's stories, watching telenovelas during college, and serving the city's growing Latino community had given her more than vocabulary. She understood the cultural nuances that made communication flow. When Carlos grew frustrated, explaining technical terms, she found ways to bridge the language gap that James's expensive translation software couldn't match. "He's saying the community investment clause is crucial," Zara translated, as Carlos's voice cracked with exhaustion. "The Mexican government won't approve any deal that doesn't guarantee local jobs. Without those exact numbers and commitments, everything falls apart." James had been on calls with his legal team, his engineers, and contacts in Mexico City, but every path led to the same dead end. The hospitalized supervisor was unconscious, and the modifications existed only in her handwritten notes, locked in a hospital security drawer. Around midnight, Zara watched James slump against the restaurant window, the weight of failure written across his features. "I've built my entire company on the idea that technology should serve communities, not just shareholders," he said quietly. "Carlos's people believed in that vision when no one else would. They trusted us with their future." "Tell me about them," Zara said, settling into the chair across from him with 2 cups of coffee she'd made. James's eyes lit up with a passion she'd never seen during his quiet Tuesday dinners. He spoke about the small Mexican communities that would get reliable power for the first time, about the local engineers Carlos's company had trained, about the grandmother who'd told him through tears that her grandchildren could finally do homework after sunset. Each story revealed layers beneath the billionaire facade, someone who measured success in changed lives rather than stock prices. "My own grandmother raised me after my parents died," James continued, his voice softer now. "She cleaned office buildings at night so I could go to school. She always said that lifting others up was the only ladder worth climbing." Zara felt tears threaten her eyes. "My grandmother used to say something similar, that kindness is never wasted, even when you can't see where it lands." That's when Carlos called with devastating news. His supervisor had briefly regained consciousness and tried to communicate, but the doctors sedated her again. She'd managed only 2 words: "La biblioteca," the library. Nobody understood what she meant. Have you ever felt responsible for someone else's dreams? Share your thoughts in the comments below. "Wait," Zara said suddenly, an idea forming. "Carlos, ask him about the public library near their office. In Mexico, don't government contracts require public posting before approval?" Her heart raced as she explained her theory to James, who was already reaching for his laptop. If the modifications were submitted to the library for public review, James's voice trailed off as he began typing frantically. The clock showed 2 a.m. In 5 hours, Carlos would face investors with either a complete contract or complete failure. Zara looked at James, exhausted, desperate, but still fighting for people he'd never met, and realized they'd found their last hope. At 2:15 a.m. Mexico City time, Carlos confirmed what Zara had suspected. Mexican law required all government energy contracts to be posted at the Central Library for 48 hours before approval. If his supervisor had filed the modifications there, copies would exist in the public record system. But the library doesn't open until 9 a.m., Carlos said, his voice hollow with exhaustion. The presentation is at 8. James was already moving, his phone pressed to his ear as he called contacts in Mexico City. "I need someone with access to government records," he told Zara, "and I need them now." She watched him work, remembering her grandmother's words about how crisis reveals who people really are. Here was a billionaire using every resource, calling in every favor, not for profit, but for principle. While James navigated Mexican bureaucracy in the middle of the night, Zara stayed connected with Carlos. She could hear the chaos in his office. Team members sleeping on couches, phones ringing constantly, the sound of dreams hanging by threads. Through broken Spanish and shared determination, she helped coordinate document searches, cross-reference backup files, and maintain hope when everything seemed lost. At 3:30 a.m., breakthrough came from an unexpected source. James's contact had reached a librarian who lived near the Central Library. Maria Santos had worked there for 30 years and kept backup keys for emergencies. More importantly, she believed that information belonged to the people, not bureaucratic schedules. "She'll meet us there in 20 minutes, James's contact reported, "but she can only give us 30 minutes before security checks the building." Zara found herself holding her breath as they waited. Carlos had gathered his core team, ready to rebuild their presentation with whatever they found. James had his lawyers standing by to verify any recovered documents. Everything hinged on those handwritten notes from a woman lying unconscious in a hospital bed. The call came at 4 a.m. sharp. Maria Santos had found the filing, 12 pages of detailed modifications, including exact community investment percentages, local hiring requirements, and environmental protection clauses. Carlos's supervisor had been thorough, documenting every conversation and commitment with the precision of someone who understood that details determined destinies. "We have it," Carlos whispered, and Zara heard him weeping with relief. "Todo está aquí. Everything is here." James immediately connected Carlos with his legal team to verify the documents and his technical team to help rebuild the presentation. As dawn approached Mexico City, the impossible became possible. Contract language flowed between teams, PowerPoint slides materialized from chaos, and a deal worth $40 million, along with hundreds of jobs, pulled back from the edge of disaster. If you've been following this incredible journey of determination and teamwork, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this one. But as the sun rose over Mexico City and final preparations began, Zara realized something had changed that couldn't be measured in dollars or contracts. James Mitchell, the quiet customer who'd eaten alone every Tuesday for months, was looking at her with something approaching wonder. "I've spent 5 years building this company," he said, as they finally began cleaning up their improvised command center. "But I've never seen anything like what you did tonight. You turned a chance phone call into..." He gestured at his laptop screen, showing successful test transmissions from Mexico City. Into this, the presentation was in 3 hours, and Carlos sounded confident for the first time all night. But Zara sensed their own story was just beginning. 3 weeks later, Zara was serving the usual Tuesday evening crowd when James Mitchell walked through Meridian's doors. But this time, he wasn't alone. Carlos Mendoza, beaming with joy and carrying a small gift bag, accompanied him to their usual table by the window. The Mexico City presentation had been a complete success. The renewable energy contract was signed, sealed, and already breaking ground on the first community solar installations. More importantly, Carlos had been promoted to regional director, and his company had landed 2 additional contracts based on their expanded partnership with James's firm. "Señorita Zara," Carlos said, standing to embrace her warmly, "you saved not just our contract, but my daughter's college fund, my wife's small business, and the dreams of 3 entire communities." He pressed the gift bag into her hands. Inside was a hand-carved wooden cross and a photo of a small Mexican town with brand-new solar panels glinting in the sunshine. "The first community that got power," James explained softly. "They wanted you to know that children there are reading by electric light for the first time because you answered a phone and cared enough to help." Zara felt tears she hadn't expected as she studied the photo. Children doing homework around a table, their faces bright with possibilities that hadn't existed a month ago. "I just answered the phone," she said quietly. "You did more than that," James replied. "You reminded me why I started this company in the first place. Success isn't about the size of your bank account, it's about the size of your impact." Carlos handed her an envelope. "From my company's board of directors," he said, "and from every family whose lights turned on because of you." Inside was a check for $10,000 and a letter of recommendation written in both English and Spanish. But the real surprise came when James cleared his throat, suddenly looking as nervous as he had that desperate night. "I've been thinking about what you said, about your college classes and your business plans. My company is expanding our community outreach division. We need someone who understands that business is really about people, someone who can bridge cultures and languages, someone who sees opportunities to help where others see problems. I'm offering you a job," he continued, his voice growing steadier. "Community Liaison Director. You'd travel, work with local communities before we implement projects, make sure we're truly serving people and not just installing technology. The position starts at $60,000 a year, plus benefits and education assistance." Zara looked around Meridian's dining room, at the life she'd built serving others meals, then back at the photo of children reading by electric light. "When do I start?" she asked, surprising herself with how quickly the answer came. 6 months later, Zara found herself in a small village in Guatemala, helping design a water purification system while chatting with local families in her ever-improving Spanish. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory, "Kindness is never wasted." A phone call answered in compassion had become a career dedicated to lifting others up. If you enjoyed this story of how one act of kindness can change everything, please like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and remember, you never know when your next opportunity to make a difference might be just a phone call away.